the bowl picture starting to clear up a little bit, right? We're starting to figure out, okay, who's going to be going where. You got some teams like South Carolina that are fighting for their bowl lives, if you will. The college football playoff picture is starting to clear as well. Week 11, going to be a lot of fun, guys. In the SEC, we start in Lexington, Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats taking on the 8th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a noon kick on ESPN. This is a game, guys, that is very intriguing. I'm not sure that it's intriguing for all the reasons we thought it would be over the summer. A game in which, guys, I think you looked at this one, at least some of us did, and said, okay, this could be a potential trap spot for Alabama. This could be one of those big upsets throughout the college football season. And I think it's always fascinating, right? Some worry about a team bouncing back from a big defeat, right? How do they pick themselves up off the floor to allow that team to beat you twice? Handling prosperity is a big thing too, though. Now, Alabama, listen, they've done a great job of it. Nick Saban, he doesn't allow complacency in his program. But I wonder, after that game against LSU, an emotional game, right? You got up for it. I mean, the night game in Tuscaloosa and a huge emotional win. Now you go on the road, sleepy noon game against an unranked Kentucky, an underwhelming Kentucky, right? Does Alabama show up and handle their business? Because Alabama should win the football game. It's going to take a special outing from Devin Leary, Dane Key, Berrien Brown, right? Ray Davis. That entire group going to take a really, really special day. Does Alabama continue to follow the script they had against LSU, the game plan, with allowing Jalen Milroe, not asking him to do something he's not comfortable in doing, which is throw the football 40, 50 times. Let him use his legs. Let him run the football 15 to 20 times, right? Had 4 rushing touchdowns in that game against LSU. The spread in this one, a little bit lower than folks would expect. What, 10.5? And I agree with what Chris Marler said in our previous segment. That is a strange number. It's a strange number because you look at that, it's a sucker bet, guys. I mean, that's what we'd call a sucker bet. Like, people are going to look at that and say, oh, Bama's going to crush Kentucky. But I don't know. College football's got a funny way of surprising us. So I do think Kentucky can have some success against that susceptible offensive line of Alabama. I think Kentucky's a much better defense than LSU. Again, it's going to take a really, really special outing from Devin Leary. I don't think he's going to be able to do enough. If this game was at night in Lexington, maybe I'd be drinking more Big Blue Nation Kool-Aid in regards to the upset. But I just don't think you can look at these two teams right now, especially with how underwhelming Kentucky has been, and say, oh, yeah, they're the upset pick for sure. So I'm going to go Alabama. Do they cover 10.5? I don't know. I can't confidently say they will, but Alabama, behind a strong running game, I think they'll continue to run Jalen Milroe. I think their front seven is going to make life really, really difficult on Ray Davis and Devin Leary. And I do think Alabama will get the win in Lexington. To Columbia, Missouri. This is a fun one, guys. The 14th-ranked Missouri Tigers taking on the 13th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers. This is a CBS 3:30 kickoff. And if you were paying attention, guys, to my gambling picks, I've got the over in this ballgame, the over 59 between Mizzou and Tennessee. This is one I really went back and forth on, guys, because Tennessee, they're such a different team away from Neyland. They're such a different team. And again, we just talked about, right, handling prosperity versus picking yourself off the floor. And Missouri coming off a really physical game against the Georgia Bulldogs. Meanwhile, you got Tennessee, Joe Milton coming in. They got the big one over UConn. Who cares, right? Tennessee's running game. That's what I want to see get going in this game. Tennessee's running game. with Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, right, what have you. Joe Milton's got to have some help. I don't think he's going to go out there and just win this game by himself, obviously. It's been an interesting season for Milton. I mean, I think Milton's been okay. He has not been even remotely close to what Hendon Hooker was. He's been okay, though, which is fine. I mean, I think that's all we were expecting. I had Missouri guys over the summer winning this game, and I considered it a massive upset. That at that point it was. I think Mizzou was looked at, okay, they're going to be about a 6-6 team, whatever. Nobody saw them being a top 15 team when this game rolled around. This is just truly a coin flip. I mean, that's like, this is a coin. Like the team that I don't pick is going to call me stupid in this one, and that's totally fine. I get that. I'm going to ride with Tennessee in this one, though. I'm going to ride with Tennessee. This is a big spot for Mizzou. 3:30 kick. I mean, a great opportunity. Their program is like on full display right now. Can kind of show the world, hey, Mizzou is for real. And I don't think they necessarily have to prove that, but I mean, there's nothing that solidifies that like winning, right? So, but I think Tennessee's got a little bit more than Mizzou. I think this is a high-scoring game, back-and-forth game. I think Joe Milton and that offense make just one more play than Brady Cook and company. I think they get the job done in Como. Give me Tennessee in this game. Really close, high-scoring, fun. Vols get it done on the road. Guys, to Fayetteville, Arkansas finally is off the schneid. Got the win in Gainesville. They take on the Auburn Tigers. This is a 4 o'clock kick on SEC Network. This is, again, another one of those tough 50-50 SEC games here. How does Arkansas follow up, specifically offensively? How do they follow up that performance against Florida? Because that was a really inspiring performance. That was a really inspiring performance that we saw them have in the Swamp. It's funny what happens when you cut off a deficient coordinator and you just kind of let your talent shine. And KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, they did that. Getting rid of Dan Enos obviously was the right move. And then you got Auburn coming off the win over Vanderbilt. Do they have the offensive firepower? I think the defense is going to hold their own. Do they have the offensive firepower with Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford, the running game there? Do they have enough to go into Fayetteville and win this football game? And I think they do, guys. I've got Auburn in this game going into Fayetteville, getting the win. Such an emotional high for Arkansas to pull off the upset. I think Auburn gets it done, though. I think Auburn's just got a little bit more. I think they use the running game in this football game to keep Arkansas's offense off the field. I'm not convinced Arkansas can follow that up, right? Florida's a bit of a team that's in disarray or dysfunctional, if you will. And I think the Tigers, I think Hugh Freeze and company do just enough to get the job done and get a win over the Hogs. To Athens, Georgia, we go. What a fun one this is, man. College game day in town. The second-ranked Georgia Bulldogs taking on the 9th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels. This game, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. This game is really interesting, guys, because it kind of feels like Georgia give them all the credit in the world. And I have on a week-in, week-out basis. They have navigated their schedule, which has been favorable, of course, but, winning in the SEC is not easy. As Shane Beamer loves to point out, it's not easy to win, right? But you watch Georgia and these first halves they have, and to me, it's like you're playing with fire to a degree if you're Georgia, and at some point it's gonna burn you, right? At some point it's gonna burn you. And this is the point in the season. I mean, Missouri, guys, is a great test, for sure. But this is the point in the season. These next 2 weeks with Ole Miss and Tennessee, we're gonna really, really learn about Georgia. And Lane Kiffin is a head coach that can give you headaches. I mean, can give you endless headaches. And doesn't it feel like we hear a lot about Lane Kiffin in big games, can't win the big game on the road especially. Feels like he's due. And it feels like Georgia is due to get burnt, playing with fire, if you will. The night game home atmosphere, I don't get people that talk about Sanford Stadium's not a good atmosphere for college ball. Like, I disagree wholeheartedly. I think it's a really good atmosphere. I think Sanford gets as loud as any stadium in the SEC. Carson Beck's been phenomenal this year. They have been able to make a living without Brock Bowers using Ladd McConkey, who is that great wide receiver room. Ole Miss defensively, they're able to get after the quarterback, so that could be an X factor in this football game. Are they able to disrupt Carson Beck, make him uncomfortable? And then it comes down to Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins and the rest of those offensive weapons. So I want to go Ole Miss. I want to go against the grain and pick Ole Miss because nobody's going to be picking against Georgia, guys. Nobody is, right? Till Georgia loses, it's like, how can you? But I think Lane Kiffin and company, they are going to give Georgia every bit of fits and headaches that you can imagine. I'm going to pick Georgia in the game. I'm going with Georgia, but there's a part of me that really wants to go with Ole Miss. I just don't know if Ole Miss is there yet. Like, Georgia's so much more talented. They're so much more talented than everybody, right? So I don't think Ole Miss is quite there yet, but, man, I think Lane Kiffin, I think he's going to have some tricks up his sleeve, and do not be surprised in the slightest when, not if, but when this is a tight ball game in the fourth quarter. Don't be surprised, guys. To Death Valley, Baton Rouge we go. LSU taking on the Florida Gators. 7:30 kick on SEC Network. It's interesting how this has become sort of a rivalry for whatever reason. And this is kind of a recency thing that it's become a rivalry. It somewhat is. LSU and Florida, it is a rivalry. Of course, LSU guys coming off that really disappointing game in Tuscaloosa. Florida coming off their own disappointment against Arkansas. The thing that makes me hesitate when I look at this game, talk about this game, is that for Florida, it's been like up and down, up and down, up and down. So you'd expect after a down, they're going to come back up. I don't know that you can follow that logic this week because LSU is waiting. And, how does LSU respond? It's going to be interesting. How does LSU respond after, guys, I mean, their goals of playing in the SEC championship, obviously going to the college ball playoff, they're shot. They're probably donezo. They're history. Like, I don't see a scenario in which, I mean, who knows? Maybe Alabama gets upset, but more than likely, LSU is cooked. And that's a tough reality. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? What's the motivation factor like for LSU? Hey, the good news is this. You got a sold out Death Valley at night. We all know, guys, LSU under the lights. They're a different beast at home under the lights. Billy Napier in Florida. This is a huge game for them, man. I mean, fighting for bowl eligibility. They're running out of chances to get there. I don't think they'll be able to do it against LSU, guys. I think Florida is somewhat in who knows what they are. In somewhat of disarray right now. They can't even get 11 guys out there on special teams. I mean, it's just like it's a bit of a mess. So LSU at home under the lights. I wonder what the motive. How excited is LSU to play this football game? But I'm going to take the Bayou Bengals at home at night every single time. Finally, Texas A&M taking on Mississippi State. This game in College Station, guys, a 7:30 kickoff on ESPN2. Not a lot to say about this game, guys. I mean, Mississippi State, a hapless Bulldogs team. I mean, Texas A&M, don't trust them with anything, but State's just terrible. There's just no other way to it. They're terrible. I don't even know what the status of Will Rogers, Woody Marks is. I don't think it's much going to matter. Texas A&M, that front seven, they're going to push Mississippi State around all night. I think A&M also offensively with Max Johnson should be able to have some success. And I do think at home, Texas A&M, I think they handle Mississippi State. I think they'll win, and they'll win big as Jimbo Fisher continues to fight for his future in College Station.